Hey guys, alright, we are back with another Historia Civilis video, this time the Battle of Alesia, 52 BCE. As you guys know, I am a late 800s Anglo-Saxon historian, not a Roman historian. However, when I was in high school, and probably my first year of college, I was definitely probably more leaning towards late Roman. No, not late Roman. Mid-Roman. So this is what I typically consider mid-Roman time. Late BCE into the Common Era. So I used to know about this stuff. I don't anymore. So this is probably just going to be a refresher on stuff I've learned in the past that I've completely forgotten about. So let's go ahead and just watch and enjoy.
Put yourself in this situation.
Oh god,
You're the commander of an army.
It's an old video.
You're up against somebody with superior technology, but you have them slightly outnumbered.
Yeah, run!
You are better supplied, but they are better disciplined. You've defeated them in a minor engagement in the past, but that was in an unusual situation, where you had cut their supply lines and they had acted foolishly. You have allies, but they're very far away, fighting battles of their own. Seriously consider this question. What would you do? This was Vercingetorix's situation in 52 BCE. His opponent was Julius Caesar. This was the Battle of Alesia.
Is this the one where Caesar builds the wall around Vercingetorix?
This is how Vercingetorix responded to this situation. He pulled his men back to a highly defensible hilltop fort.
Yep.
He sent out messengers to all of his allies, asking for reinforcements. His logic was this: if Caesar was foolish enough to attack the fort, Vercingetorix still held the high ground with superior numbers.
Can I have the high ground?
If Caesar was foolish enough to wait around, Vercingetorix's reinforcements would arrive, and Caesar would be up against two armies instead of one. You can see that Vercingetorix is trying his best to play into his strengths. Greater numbers? Let's amplify that by calling for reinforcements. Better supplied? Let's dig in and see if the enemy acts impulsively. So what went wrong? Over the course of his 7-year proconsulship, Caesar had been slowly tightening his grip on Gaul.
When talking about stuff like this,
any
to
territory
see,
officially,
like Vercingetorix and Caesar are two amazing military generals. Obviously, Caesar is the
supplied him with
better one,
but
these are two geniuses pretty much going head to head.
The Roman Senate may not have called it annexation, but it would have felt an awful lot like it to the Gallic people. As Caesar's grip on Gaul tightened, a conspiracy hatched between the regional Gallic leaders. They decided on a coordinated uprising across all of Gaul. This conspiracy coalesced around one man who was elected to lead the uprising, named Vercingetorix. Now we return to the scene of the battle. Vercingetorix outnumbered Caesar by about a third, and is sitting in a great defensive position. He has reinforcements on the way, but he doesn't know how many are coming or when they will get there. His men are well fed for the moment, but they seem intimidated by Rome's infantry, so he waits. Caesar closes in, and quickly gets to work besieging Alesia. This is already a little unorthodox. Caesar has a numerically inferior force, and is deep in enemy territory with shaky supply lines. Plus, being enemy territory, a Gallic army could be just over any horizon. Caesar was putting himself in a terribly vulnerable position, and he knew it.
It's funny.
He begins to construct a set of inward-facing walls that ran an amazing 18 kilometers, circumventing the entire fort and hillside, cutting off any potential escape. They would have had to clear entire sections of forest just to construct it. These were not just some thrown-together fortifications either. These walls were 2 stories tall, with ladders and raised platforms for patrols. Then, Caesar turned around.
The efficiency of Rome's military at its peak, is just insane. Because these guys weren't just warriors, but they could build. Obviously, they certainly had people inside the army that, were the ones that could design this stuff, right? So that the base soldiers could easily construct it, right? And it's not like every soldier was a mastermind in construction or whatever, but you know what I mean. It's still crazy.
They did the exact same thing again, this time facing the other direction. Leaving a wide enough gap to contain his entire army, he constructed another set of walls facing outward. He managed to get all of this done in a matter of weeks. Naturally, as you would expect, Vercingetorix attempted to slow down this process by sending out raiding parties to attack the workers, but they were easily repulsed by the Roman infantry. Do you see what Caesar did and why he did it? This is where his genius begins to show. Vercingetorix put him in an impossible situation, where he either assaulted a well-defended position against superior numbers, or waited to be caught between two armies with even more superior numbers, or he could have retreated. Caesar created a fourth option. He made his own fort. He stole Vercingetorix's tactical advantage right out from under him. Now, if Vercingetorix wanted out, he was going to have to be the one assaulting Caesar's well-defended position. When Vercingetorix's reinforcements finally arrived, the numbers were huge. If you count the combined Gallic armies, they outnumbered the Romans at something approaching 3 to 1. On the very first day, the Gallic armies advanced. They placed their massive numbers of cavalry in front, shielding and concealing lines of archers behind them.
A wall with
the
forces?
Gauls always had excellent cavalry, superior to Roman cavalry in every way, so this was a pretty aggressive stance. Luckily for Caesar, he had been collecting cavalry from all across Gaul for many years now, and he had just received some elite mounted auxiliaries from Germania. He sent them out to meet the enemy advance. Intense cavalry on cavalry fighting took place all day. Whenever the Romans thought they were gaining the upper hand, the Gallic cavalry would pull back into the range of their archers, and the Romans would get surprised by a nasty volley of arrows. At this time, Vercingetorix's forces pushed up and prepared for an attack on the interior wall. They never found the opportunity. Caesar's elite German cavalry regrouped on the hillside and charged downhill into the enemy, finally driving them into a full-fledged retreat. This time, the Romans were able to reach the lines of Gallic archers, who were easily killed. Somehow, outnumbered and outmatched, the Romans were able to hold the Gallic cavalry off, and all sides retired for the evening. The second day passed uneventfully, but that night a focused surprise attack was launched from both directions at one specific point on the Roman defensive line. A young man named Mark Antony heroically commanded this section of the line,
Man, who
and
could
in
that guy
Caesar's
be?
eyes,
Who could
his
Mark
leadership
Antony be?
single-handedly saved the day.
Never heard
Additional
that name
troops were called
before.
over from the far side of the wall, and the Romans were barely able to hang on for the night. Caesar knew talent when he saw it, and for the rest of his life, Antony would be his right-hand man. On the third day, the Gauls planned for an all-out assault. They began by taking some nearby high ground outside of the enclosure that was being lightly defended by some Roman infantry. The Gallic relief army then launched an offensive along the entire Roman defensive line. The thrust of this attack was a group commanded by Vercingetorix's cousin, who took his men up the newly liberated hillside and charged down it, attacking a weak point in the Roman wall. The small Roman army was stretched thinner and thinner, trying to defend the entire length of the wall at once. Caesar took personal command of his men in reserve, micromanaging groups of 500 men, having them reinforce sections of the wall just as they were about to fall to the enemy. Finally, Vercingetorix realized what was happening and got his act together. He threw every man he had at one point along the thin Roman line, attempting to break through. The Gauls were doing pretty much exactly what they should have been doing. Spread the Romans thin to maximize their numerical weakness, and then breach the walls to nullify the defenses.
Yep.
Caesar saw what was happening, and threw every man he had in reserve at this section of the wall. Caesar was now fully committed, but Vercingetorix's breakout was thwarted. The besieged Gauls now shifted their tactics, beginning to attack the entire length of the inside wall. Caesar's army was now completely surrounded, fighting in all directions at once. The Roman situation now began to crumble.
God, this had to be
Vercingetorix's
like a
cousin,
nightmare.
attacking downhill, successfully breached the Roman wall, and Gauls began to pour through the Roman defenses. Caesar personally rode through his lines, stealing any unit he thought could be spared, and threw them towards the breach in the wall. In total, he was able to rally over 6,500 men, who formed a shield wall and held the entire Gallic army in place. Caesar then took personal command of his remaining cavalry, who were not of much use defending the walls, who, amazingly, managed to punch through the Gallic attackers at another section of the wall. The Roman cavalry then turned and charged up behind the Gauls who had breached their walls. The Gauls saw the Roman cavalry charge and panicked, not realizing that the Romans were stretched to capacity and that this was the last card that Caesar had to play. Many Gauls tried to flee, but it was too late. The Roman cavalry encircled the Gauls, killing or capturing most
pure
of them.
luck.
Seeing this, the rest of the Gallic relief army retreated. This finally allowed the Roman infantry to turn and focus on Vercingetorix, who then was pushed back into the fort. He surrendered the next day. Now you see what Caesar was able to accomplish when he was put in an impossible tactical situation, and you can get a hint at how his brain worked. He wasn't necessarily obsessed with fancy formations, or complicated maneuvers, or classic set-piece battles. He had great sub-commanders who could do all of that for him. His thinking was always focused on bigger issues. Where does the enemy have the advantage? How can I mitigate that? Where am I strong? How can I maximize that advantage? How can I make the enemy tired?
Advantage.
How can I make sure the enemy has the sun in their
Advantage.
eyes? How can I make the enemy fight in the mud?
Advantage.
How can I make them skip breakfast?
Advantage.
His military talent, and you could say his political talent, lied with opportunism. He would take a situation and squeeze every conceivable advantage out of it until there was nothing left. And then, as with the Battle of Alesia, he would roll the dice.
And he got extremely lucky with that Gallic retreat at the end there. Extremely lucky. Oh man. Yeah, if that cavalry did not break out, he would have been toast. We would have seen a much different Gaul, a much different Europe probably. Maybe. Well, yeah, because Caesar was a tipping point for Rome. Now maybe there would have been another that came across that tried to do exactly what Caesar did, try to become dictator for life or whatever. Who knows? Maybe they would have become the empire still eventually. Who knows? But in our timeline, as far as we know, or well, as what we know, Caesar was pretty much the definitive turning point for Rome. Yeah, that was the Battle of Alesia, 52 BCE, by Historia Civilis. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.